Okay, I'm gonna tell you the story of how I first discovered porn. I'm 13 years old, so this is like 2010, right? So, because I'm 27 years old now. We're sat in computer class in high school, and my friend Tom looks over at me and says, Hamza, type this name into Google, but you've got to add clean at the end of it. So I type in the name that he tells me. It's like a woman's name, which I'm not going to say here, but it's a woman's name. Then I write clean at the end of it, and I press enter, and we go onto Google Images. And it's basically like a pornographic photo shoot of this woman. Must have been done in like the early 2000s, because it had like this really like old, you know, kind of like vibe to it. And it's like this girl, and she's in this cafe, like this American style cafe, and she's, you know, like not dancing, but you know, she's like posing provocatively, like in a kind of a sexual way. And she's got her clothes on in this. But already this was making our cheeks go red, and you know, I was scared of the teacher finding it, scared of the people next to me. So I ended up clicking X, and we're both just kind of like shy and whatever. For the rest of the day in school, my mind is thinking about what I've just seen. Like that, you know, it's ingrained in my mind, seeing a woman in that kind of pose, that energy. So I decide that once I get home, I'm gonna type the same name into Google Images, but this time write the word dirty at the end of it instead of clean. So I get home, go on my little laptop, and I write up the name, write dirty at the end of it, search on Google Images, and it's the same kind of photo shoot, but her top is off. So you can't see anything below the waist, but her top is off. And it's basically the first time I'm seeing like titties. Like, wow, like boobies, like, you know, it's insane. I've heard about this stuff before, but it's the first time I'm like really seeing it. And my dick starts getting hard. I know already what to do, because I've heard like kids in school talk about it. So I masturbate for the first time ever. And I don't even think I was inside of puberty at this point, by the way, because when I had the first orgasm of my life, a clear drop, one singular clear drop of liquid, like just formed at the out of my little pee-pee. Like it wasn't even white or anything, it was like pure clear. And so it must have been like prepubescent. And whilst this might be like a, you know, a funny story for us to look back on now, it's kind of sad at the same time. It's lucky that this was the start of my consumption of porn and, you know, the habit of fapping, because I was 13 years old when I first discovered it. But now I speak to guys who tell me that they've had porn addictions since they were 8 or 9 years old. I speak to guys who don't just fap to like pictures, as I did when I was a teenager, but to like short form porn, you know, like kind of like short on Instagram, but they're off like provocative kind of like girls bops, as the teenagers call them, the bops and the 304s, just like dancing and, you know, just being sexual and stuff, which is crazy. Like, think about this for a second, right? Because chances are you're maybe 10 years younger than me. When I was your age, and when I was like a little bit younger, when I was like 13, 14, 15, I used to fap to pictures, like Google Images. Back then, there was no like Instagram, TikTok porn. There was no short form porn. There was like videos, you know, like the Pornhub and all those websites were a thing. But I always used to find that was like too extreme for me. And I always just used to think it was kind of gay to watch, like, to have like another guy's dick inside of the, you know, the view. And I still think it is right now. Like, younger me was based as fuck. So I would just look at pictures of just girls basically just by themselves. And that would be more than enough for me to go a couple times a day. When I finally got to about 16, 17 years old, that's when I started to go onto Pornhub and watch these full-length videos and have like 5 browsers open, and it got more and more. And by the time I got to about 21, 22 years old, so this is about 5 years ago, back in like 2019, 2020, that was when it was at the worst. And this was when, you know, short form porn was a thing, and I was like jacking it to compilations and Instagram models and all this. And it's only now becoming, it always has been, but it's only becoming like such a massive addiction for young guys. You know, 5, 10 years ago, like back in my day, it was a bit of an addiction, but it also wasn't like a crazy thing where guys were doing it multiple times a day, where that was like the norm. These days, if someone tells you like on average they jack off 3 times a day, that's not even that crazy anymore. I know it's still bad, I'm not saying it's not bad, but if someone said that to you, your mind wouldn't be blown. Even if someone said, yeah, like, you know, I've done it 8 times in a day, that's the most they've done in one day. It's like, that's not even that crazy anymore. Like that, like, honestly, it's not. Most people have got a fucking high score of like 10 or something crazy like that. It's just sad. And I wanted to make this video to just explain to you over the last few years some of the research I've done on porn, why it's even worse than you think. If, for example, you're watching this and you get into those moments where, you know, sometimes you're watching these sort of anti-porn videos, but then other times you end up, you know, slipping and you're relapsing, and as you do it, you kind of say to yourself like, yeah, it's not even that bad, it's fun, it's increasing my testosterone, whatever. If you're someone who's kind of straddling in the middle of this problem right now, where sometimes you think it's not that bad and other times you do, I'm hoping that what I'm about to tell you is just going to push you over the edge for you to just really realize it's a really bad thing. And I don't want to go over too long on some of the basics, like, you know, like the porn addiction and how it impacts your relationships, whatever, but I'm going to tell you some weird new things you might have never heard of from people before. So let's cover some of the basics first. Why is porn bad? And there's a few key reasons. Number one is dopamine. So dopamine is like this molecule. It's kind of like this thing inside of your brain that gives you motivation. So when you have the feeling of motivation to do anything, that is dopamine. So when we feel like watching porn, that's dopamine inside of us. When we feel like going to the gym, that's dopamine. When we're motivated for anything, if it's schoolwork, if it's to go talk to that girl over there, or if it's to lie around and scroll, you know, up until we find like a funny reel or play video games and get to the next level on some MMORPG, that's all dopamine. Now, the way dopamine works is really insidious, so you need to learn this, and you might want to write notes on this, okay? The things that trigger our dopamine and stimulate a lot of it, they often end up putting you at a lower baseline of dopamine after the activity is done. So imagine if we could quantify our dopamine level to make it easy. Let's say that you're at 100. Now, when you go and watch porn, when you're about to watch porn, you know, you get that desire to watch it, your dopamine goes up to 150, 200, 250, you know, when you're searching for the right video or whatever, it goes up 250, like you're so motivated, you're on this like hunt. But the moment it's done and you're sat there in a pile of your little nut, you drop not back down to where you were, which was 100, but you drop below that and you have a new low baseline. So you were at 100, that was your normal level. Now your normal level is 90. Now that's not much, but imagine if you do it 3 times in that day and your normal level is like 70 now. Now the hard part comes in. We need dopamine to be motivated for the good habits as well, to have desire for good things. So if you want desire to level up in life and to set goals and to work hard and to delay gratification, so you know you can work hard for some like delayed reward in the future, like a physique, for example, because you can't really get the physique, like the muscle today. It takes 6 months, it takes even 6 years. For you to be able to desire that, you needed 100 in dopamine score, but you only have 70 now. So you literally lose desire, the motivation for the things that you wanted. You know how you kind of cognitively know, you know that you, for example, want to make muscle, you want to get money, whatever. But you know how sometimes you just don't feel motivated enough, and you feel like for some reason you can't even use discipline as well on those days. Like you just can't show up to the gym on some days. It's because your dopamine has dropped below its natural baseline. And this is why porn is so insidious, because it gives you one of the biggest peaks and troughs. That's where it rises up and it drops below your baseline. And every time you look at porn, every single time you jack off, you're getting to a new low baseline. And it's basically like, think about how bad this is. It's literally lowering your ability in this world. Like, think about that for a second. Watching porn, messing up your dopamine, is lowering your ability to do stuff, like do things in this world. It's lowering your ability to even desire getting a girlfriend or working hard or getting to the next level in your studies or whatever it is. Think about how crazy that is. This is why so many young guys, so many guys of all ages feel so demotivated. And it's not the kind of, you know, motivation where you can say like, oh, just be disciplined anyway. It's the kind where it's like, it's not just about motivation. It's like you have no desire to even level up. You have no desire, no care to even go and make money or to establish a better relationship with your family or to get fitter or whatever. And think about how insidious that is. So that's the first major problem of porn. It hijacks your dopamine receptors. So write that down. maybe write it as like a YouTube comment below. So if someone's just skimming the video, they can like, read your comments and give it a like because you've said what the points are. Now, the second thing is how porn impacts your relationships. And you already know what I'm about to say here. It gives you these weird, unrealistic standards for how sex is supposed to be. Now, there's some of the basic things that you know, like for example, imagine the variety of porn that you can watch, where you can go and find like the perfect looking girl who's a 10 out of 10, and you can basically keep scrolling through the options of Instagram girls and porn stars and whatever, till you find the girl who's just perfect for what you desire right now. But in the real world, it's not like that. When you eventually get a girlfriend and you realize that she doesn't look anywhere near as kind of like voluptuous or whatever as the girls you've been watching, it can be a bit of a disappointment. And some guys even find that they then can't even get erections with real girls anymore. Like, think about that. Some guys literally will fall in love with a girl, or they'll meet a girl and their dick can't even get hard to have actual sex because of how much porn they've watched, and they're just not really enjoying themselves with actual sex anymore. But there's something more insidious which most people don't talk about when it comes to relationships. In fact, I've actually heard almost no one talk about this, especially the kind of people you watch. This is stuff that people in the spiritual world, those kinds of people know. And I hope to kind of like bridge the gap for you here. So here's something I've learned from speaking to like spiritual, like these weird kind of people who just know so much more about like love and those kinds of things. When you watch porn and you masturbate, you train yourself to be a shallow breather, a timid sexual being. Think about the act of sex for a second. Like, think about caveman times, think about animalistic sex. Just think about that for a second. Think about if you were like an actual genuine alpha male, like an animal. Would you have sex quietly, or would you purposely be loud to like mark your dominance? I know this sounds silly, but just think about this for a second, right? You would, right? You would be loud, you wouldn't be quiet. How would you breathe during sex if you weren't like an insecure fapper? If you were the king of the jungle, you would have the big loud breaths, full breaths. The next time you jack off, please try to remember to do this, because I think you're going to be astonished by this. Pay attention to how little you're breathing. Pay attention that you're breathing so shallowly. Pay attention that you're almost curled up in this like beta male position, just fucking stroking your little cock. You're in this like timid state, as if you're almost dying, as if you're hiding from predators, right? Because you're hiding from your parents. It trains you over 1,000 fapping sessions to basically be in the sexual energy of timidness, of nervousness, of quietness. Think about this for a second. Like, how would you idealistically like to fuck? I know you might be young right now, so you're not really thinking about that, but let's just imagine in the future, you've got this girl who wants to be with you. Would you want to be a silent guy? Would you really think about it? Is that like your dream, to be silent just in case his people can hear you? Probably not. Now that you're thinking about it, you're like, yeah, fuck it. I would want to fuck like loudly because I'm a fucking man, and this is like one of the most hype parts of life. One of the most animalistic parts of life is making love. I wouldn't want to be shallowly breathing and being timid and being quiet, scared that people might hear me. I'd want to be in animalistic mode. But when you fap, of course, you're not gonna just make noises or anything. Oh, hopefully not, right? When you fap, you're training yourself to be quiet. There's a paradigm which no one talks about, like none of the normal sort of YouTubers talk about, but the spiritual people know, which is that a lot of guys, basically every guy who has watched a lot of porn and done a lot of fapping, when they finally start to have sex with their partners, they fuck like wimps. They like, you're more likely right now to end up having sex like a little wimp. And imagine your future girl not being turned on by you because she can just sense that you're scared to be heard by people, compared to the animalistic guy who doesn't give a fuck because this is his primal time. I know what I'm saying sounds a bit cringe, but can you see my point here? You wouldn't want to be the timid, shy guy, right? So why condition yourself to put yourself in this sexual kind of energy of that, of quietness, of shallow breathing, of this kind of like, oh, I hope I don't get caught, because it feels like a shameful thing, right? And that leads us on to another problem. There's this thing called the emotional frequency graph. It's said that like basically everything we do has like vibrations and frequencies like this. There's like weird kind of invisible energy that we all emit, kind of like aura. Like a lot of you young guys say the word aura, which kind of means like this invisible energy you're giving off, in the sense that like you are cool or you're attractive, right? You're starting to get that a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't sound as like spiritual or wishy-washy as it sounds. We all emit a certain kind of aura. The worst aura that you can emit, like it's called like emotional frequency waves or whatever, is actually shame and guilt. That's the kind of most cringy, uncomfortable aura that someone could have. Even someone having an aura of like aggression and anger is actually better than them having the aura, the emotional frequency of shame and guilt. That is like the most unattractive aura that someone could have. How do you feel after you've just jacked off? It's shame and guilt. Because if you didn't feel shameful and guilty, you wouldn't be, doing it in private and be, fapping and watching porn so quietly, not wanting your parents to hear, right? If there's anything you're doing in your room which you don't want your parents to hear, there's an element of shame involved, right? If you wouldn't do it in front of all of the kids in your class, there's some shame involved. Now, here's the thing. Would you hit a PR in front of the kids in your class? Would you feel shameful doing that? Imagine if you were about to hit a PR, we teleported all of the kids from your like high school class to watch you. Would you feel shameful if you hit the PR? No, you'd feel like a fucking G, right? It might make you feel uncomfortable because there's so many people watching you, but you wouldn't feel shameful. How about like working really hard? Would you feel shameful if people watched you do that? No. How about eating a clean diet? No, you wouldn't feel shameful. But jacking off? Yes. Watching porn? Yes. So why do we do these things that give us this aura of shame and guilt? Because people can sense this. I'm telling you right now, that day where you jack off in the morning and you go to school afterwards or you go to work, it's not that they can tell that you jacked off, but they'll slightly just be unattracted to you that day without even realizing it, because you'll be carrying this energy of shame and guilt, this kind of energy of like, yeah, I did something bad this morning that I wouldn't want you guys to know. Like imagine if someone shouted in your class like, oh yeah, he masturbated this morning, and you saw all the girls looking over. You'd be like, no, I've not. You'd lie, right? Why would you lie about it? If you did jack off in the morning and like some girl asked you, did you masturbate today? You'd lie. You wouldn't say to her, yeah, I did. You'd lie and say like, no. Think about it. Why would you lie? Because you feel shameful for this action. That's your own values there. This isn't even my values. The fact that you probably agree with what I've just said, that's your values. Your values are that this is a bad thing that you'd be embarrassed to do if people found out about it. But here's the thing. People can tell that you've done shameful things just by the energy that you emit when you walk around and when you talk to people. It's like your lack of eye contact and everything. And I will tell you the final problem of porn and masturbation, in fact, one of the benefits you can get when you quit, is that of the power of semen. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, but like semen, like the things we produce as men, it actually makes you into like a strong, like hungry, zestful man. Like really think to yourself, why would a man work hard? It's because he wants to procreate. He wants to have sex and have children. It's just our animalistic urge. Basically, we work hard for only 2 reasons. Or let's say 3 reasons. There's only 3 reasons why any animal would work hard. Can you guess what all 3 are? Really think to yourself. Number 1, survival, defense. Save yourself from predators, from like the elements. 2, to reproduce, to pass off our genes. And number 3, because of hunger, to eat and to drink. Those are the 3 reasons why you would work hard. There's basically no other reason other than those 3 reasons to work hard. There is, but that gets a little bit deep, like when you start to add the reason of love or whatever, like our contribution to society. But that takes a little bit of time to get into, and when you're in your teenage years, you're more kind of selfish and you're just going to be focused on these 3. Think about that for a second. If we constantly eat around the clock and we're always full, we don't get to have the motivation that's caused by hunger, which is huge. Some of the top level guys that you look up to, they purposely keep themselves hungry and purposefully don't eat so that they can work harder. You probably eat around the clock every single day. You couldn't even imagine having a day where you eat nothing, right? I'm telling you, some of the killers you watch, they'll purposefully not eat because they know it actually increases their drive, which is crazy. Now, it's the exact same thing with semen and with ejaculation, with porn and fapping. If you fap all the time, you're basically like letting your body know like, oh yeah, like we've got none of the semen left, so we don't really need to work hard because technically we've done what we needed to do. If you keep that inside of you, If you keep your semen inside of you, if you don't ejaculate, I promise you, you will have way more drive. Now you might ask, yeah, but then I'll be like too horny, then I'll get distracted. But that's only because you're not putting the energy into something. So those moments when you get super horny, super distracted, you've got to kind of explode into some energy and go and do something like say to yourself, fuck it, let me go on the longest run that I've ever been on in my life. Let me go do a 10K, 15K, 20K. Let me go and record, like for my YouTube channel, I'm trying to become a content creator. I'll go record 6 videos right now. Let me put that energy to some use. The problem is a lot of guys, they'll kind of like sit there and be like, oh, I'm horny and my dick's hard. I'm horny, my dick's hard. Oh, okay, gotta jack off. It's like, no, like the whole point is you've got to, when you're filled with that fucking agitated energy, it's kind of like pre-workout. If you had pre-workout and you just sit there, of course it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's the same with our semen. It's like semen, honestly, is kind of like pre-workout in a sense. It makes you uncomfortable to sit around. So there's 2 ways to release that kind of energy. Number 1, fucking spurt it out your little pee-pee. Or 2, go and take some action in the real world, which will cue your brain to think, oh yeah, I'm full of nut right now because I don't have a woman. So I'll work hard to make myself more attractive so that a woman will come to me. That's what you want to be doing. That's the dangers of porn. It stops you from doing that. When you're the kind of guy who's jacking off every day, multiple times a day, you lose that extra zest. And if you haven't felt this just yet, let me just tell you, it's amazing. You'll have like some of the best workouts of your life. You'll have like the best work periods, the best studies. You'll go through like, let's say the season where you only fap once a week, for example, and that's like the lowest you have ever done before. That season is the one where you're going to be working hard, getting better grades, improving in the gym and everything. Every goal that you could think of, you'll do better in. So that's why porn is worse than you think, and I really hope that this video helps you. I've got something that will change your life for just $500. It's linked in the description if you want to go have a look. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.